Hello there dear viewers, welcome to the Allotment Family Diary. My name's Tom and today it's Thursday the 19th of June. It is scorching hot, it's a real scorcher today. It's 28 degrees in the shade, and if it wasn't for the wind, I think I would have collapsed by now, quite honestly. If you're not already aware, we are third year allotment holders. When I say we, the two plots we have up here are managed by myself, my wife Hannah and our daughter Flo. We got our first half plot in May 2023 and then extended it, the second half of the plot, in February 2024. And then this year, 2025, a couple of months ago, we have taken on a real fixer-upper of a plot. There will be more videos on the revamp of that wild jungle coming along soon. So with this lovely British summer that we're having, everything has been growing away nicely outside. Now I say outside because in this video, I want to focus on our polytunnel, my pride and joy, my baby, the polytunnel. As some of you are probably aware, we did a revamp on the polytunnel not long ago, but we actually first got our original polytunnel in February 2024. Now this was a fairly cheap one, to be honest. I think it cost around £150, and the sad thing about it was the cover just disintegrated in less than a year. So we had to replace the cover, and whilst we were doing that, we decided also to replace the door frames. We kept the original frame from the cheap polytunnel and just reinforced it, and I tell you what, it's just, yeah, it's lasted. Even with high winds up here that we get on this plot, it's still standing strong. When it came to reskinning the polytunnel, we were lucky enough to be provided a cover by First Tunnel, so do check out those guys. Quality products, lovely people as well. Unfortunately, with the old cover that we had, the zips on the doors just broke within a couple of months. So we thought this time we're going to invest in a proper door kit. So that includes the timber, the mesh for the top of the door, and the polythene at the bottom, all the nails, the hinges, everything. Really good value for money. Our polytunnel is 6 meters long, 3 meters wide and 2 meters tall. And we estimate that the entire build, if you chalk it all up, probably cost about £400 in total. So this includes the beds that we put on the inside of the polytunnel. We've got 2 long beds either side. We built 2 potting tables as well, and this was mostly with reclaimed timber that we got from our local recycling centre. We have an old bathroom cabinet in there as well, where I store various tools, plant feed, things like that. And a really important part of the polytunnel is the pot shelf. So we got a cheap pot shelf from IKEA because we have so many pots and they just end up all over the place. So at least we can keep them neat and tidy in the polytunnel. So all in all, we're really happy with our polytunnel. We have reinforced the frame, hammered it into the ground as well. And if we look after it, you know, that cover could actually last up to 10 years. So it's a really worthwhile investment for us. But anyway, I suppose you want an update on what's been growing on in the polytunnel. So let's go and have a look. I hope the camera doesn't shut down. It's so hot in there. Come on, let's go and see. Here we are. So welcome to the polytunnel. Let's just get in and close the door. So what I'll do, I'm going to do a deep dive into these plants shortly, but I'm just going to give you like a brief overview of things in here. So we are only growing 5 varieties. So we're growing tomatoes, basil, chilies, peppers, and some salad crops. So if I just give you a quick tour, we'll have a look at each specific type of chili and pepper and tomato, etc. in just a moment. And just up here, so there's my utility corner, and then we've reached the top of the polytunnel. We've just come out the top, turn around, lovely view of the site up here. So we'll come back in, and there we go. So you can see we've got the 2 potting tables with lots of chilies and peppers on. And then underneath we have more peppers there and lots of lovely flowers, which are French marigolds. Now I've just looked at the temperature gauge, so we're on 48.7 degrees in here at the moment. And if you're wondering what these are some Savoy cabbages, which will be potted on very soon. So this is it. This is our polytunnel. We lined the floor and we've added paving slabs just so it's safe and you don't slip. As you can see as well, we've used hot tape around all of the metal bars to extend the life of the cover. And down here, yeah, we've got more peppers. What I'll do is I will take some footage of various different plants that we've got growing in here, and I'll talk about those and tell you exactly what we've got. As I say, it's like 48 degrees, so when you're filming on an iPhone, they tend to overheat and shut down. So I think I'll have to just film little bits and I'll just talk about them and we'll see how we get on. I've escaped to the shelter and safety of our new arbour right underneath the lovely pine tree. So I've got some footage for you guys, and let's have a deep dive into what we're growing in our lovely polytunnel. So as I mentioned, those lovely bouquets of colour are French marigolds, and they are perfect pest deterrents. We have seen no aphids, no black flies at all in that polytunnel whatsoever. Different story outside though, they're all over the place. They're also perfect deterrent crops as well for slugs and snails. Last year we did have some damage from those critters, and this year we've seen nothing because the only slug damage we've seen has been on the marigolds. We have a few different types of basil growing in the polytunnel. This year we have the African blue. We also have a sweet basil. We have purple basil and also holy basil. Again, these are great pest deterrents, and we've got an endless supply of fresh basil at our disposal, and we have been working our way through that, trimming them back about once a week. We do have a lot of room for salad crops still in our polytunnel, and a few weeks back I planted some Kometsuna, some green boys, and these are lovely in a stir fry or even just on their own in a salad. I've got 2 rows in there for the moment, and I've left space for a 3rd row, and I kind of want to stagger the planting of them so we have a steady crop of them over the summer. Moving on to tomatoes, we have 2 varieties growing in the polytunnel. We do have a 3rd variety growing at home, which is Crimson Crush in our garden, but in the polytunnel we've just got the 2. So we have Honeycomb, which when it ripens turns orange, and Han and I tried some the other day. There were 2 that were ready, and they are so sweet, so nice, they're beautiful. They've grown very well. We have been feeding them around once a week with liquid seaweed, although I do feel they've suffered slightly with the heat in the polytunnel. I mean, tomato plants generally enjoy a temperature between 21 to 27 degrees Celsius, so it is very hot in there, and that can potentially lead to decreased fruiting. And that's why it's so important to keep those polytunnels door open and allow for ventilation and airflow. Our 2nd variety of tomatoes are a beefsteak, and this is Brandywine. This was a viewer suggestion, so thank you very much for suggesting that. Again, these have been fed with liquid seaweed once a week. I would say we're watering our tomato plants every other day at the moment, just because it's so hot in that polytunnel. We're staying on top of the suckers on the tomatoes and just taking them off where we can. However, we have left a few, so because our polytunnel is only 2 meters tall, those Brandywine can apparently grow to about 8 to 10 feet tall. So what I'm doing is allowing some suckers, because we're going to top the plant eventually, otherwise it's just going to hit the roof. And by leaving a few suckers to grow, we're effectively going to have sort of 2 plants in one. We'll see how that goes. It's just an idea of mine. Have you had any luck with that? Let me know in the comments. All of these tomato plants were started from seed at home on the heat mats and the grow lights, and then moved up to the polytunnel later on. Do you know what? I think next year I'm not growing any tomatoes in that polytunnel, because the ones at home just grown outdoors in the garden are doing just as well. Now let's talk about my favourite crops. Best plants. I love growing these. Grew them last year, grew them this year. I'm not a pro, but I think we're seeing some good results so far. Peppers and chilies. Now, we don't grow for extreme heat. We're not into all that kind of thing. We grow for flavour. Yeah, I like heat. I like a bit of a spicy chili, not too hot. The rest of the family aren't too keen on the heat. So let's start off with the peppers, and as you've seen, we have a huge row of pepper plants growing directly in the ground. These were started just after Boxing Day on the heat mats and grow lights at home, and eventually transplanted into the polytunnel. These are doing extremely well. You can see there's an abundance of peppers coming on them already. There are 2 varieties, a yellow and an orange pepper, and these are Fiesta and Delirio. It's really important to stake these, because the other day, although I put a stake into one of them, it actually flopped over. Luckily didn't harm the plant, but make sure you stake them and tie them to the stakes because the weight of those peppers can pull the plant over. Next we have the Mycera pepper, which is a replacement for the Thor peppers, sweet peppers that we grew last year. I couldn't get Thor, so I went for Mycera. Very similar, to be honest. These were started off a few months ago, so they're a bit late in the game and they do need potting onto bigger pots. Now all three varieties of those, they're not spicy obviously, they're just peppers, and these are fantastic. Just eaten raw, to be honest. Put them in a salad, you can fry them up, you can stuff them, you can do all sorts with peppers. Our family loves them and that's why we're growing so many. Moving on to chilies, let's start with the least hot up to the most hot. Now I try and grow chilies from seed wherever I can. Again, heat mats, grow lights at home, but there are a couple of these which I purchased from a company called South Devon Chili Farm when we went to Toby's Garden Festival. So do check out that video if you haven't seen it already. You can find it in our back catalogue of videos. As you'll see, these plants were quite small when we first got them, and they have grown quite big in that polytunnel. So the first on the list is the standard jalapeno. I'm going to go through the Scoville ratings as well. So this one rates anywhere between 2,500 to 8,000, and your jalapeno is perfect for salsas, nachos. I like them on pizzas, and also you can pickle them as well. Next up we have the Bishop's Crown. This has a Scoville rating of anywhere between 5,000 to 30,000. This one is perfect on salads. It has a kind of appley taste, and you can also roast them. We have several of these plants that we grew from seed, and I can't wait to try these. They look amazing too. Next up we have Machu Picchu. Now this one rates anywhere between 10,000 to 15,000 Scovilles. When it's ripened it turns brown. It looks like a strange kind of raisin to me, an elongated raisin I suppose. It has a smoky flavour and it's apparently quite good when it's dried. Now these 5 we started from seed at home back at the end of December, and I do think, to be honest, these need to be moved into wider pots. They're not quite wide enough. You can see the plants kind of struggling to branch out, but that's something I'll catch up on very soon. Next up we have the Jalmundo. Now this is another one that we got from South Devon Chili Farm. Scoville wise, it's about 17,000. It's a cross between a bell pepper and a jalapeno, and they're also larger and hotter than your standard jalapeno. This is a really interesting one, and I can't wait to see what they look like when they're finally fully grown. Next up we have the Cha-Cha. What a name, Cha-Cha. This is another one from South Devon Chili Farm. Scoville wise, you're looking at anywhere between 50,000 to 70,000. So when these ripen, they turn a bright orange, and they are perfect in Thai dishes. They're quite a small and compact plant too, so you could also use them as windowsill varieties, and people use them as decorative chilies as well. So this is a bit of a special one. So you guys might remember that I grew a Cuban black last year. I loved it. It was my favorite chili plant. It looked amazing and it tasted amazing too. Now when I was weeding out the polytunnel the other day, I came across a seedling, so it had seeded itself, which is amazing because I tried to overwinter the plant and it died. So it's a bit late in the game for it now, but we'll see what comes of it. You know, we may get a few chilies off it. It is quite tiny though still. And if you're wondering, Scoville wise, it's anywhere between 50,000 to 100,000 Scovilles. Next we have the Purple Flash. Now this, what a beautiful plant. I mean, the colours on it are amazing. This is another one from South Devon Chili Farm. It is an ornamental variety. Again, you can grow it on your windowsill. People grow it just because it looks pretty. It's kind of like the Cuban black, and that's why I picked it, because it really reminded me of my long lost friend. And these chilies, when they're ready, have a Scoville rating of around 80,000. Now last but not least, we have Fiery Flames. I grew this one last year, again tried to overwinter to no success, but I still have a ton of them that I've dried out at home. I started these from seed a few months back and they've grown really well. They are a compact variety and they're perfect in Asian and Chinese cooking. Their Scoville rating is anywhere between about 86,000 to 100,000. Now these are extremely tasty, and when the chili's ready it looks like a small red bullet. Tilly has actually made a spectacular chili jam with some of these and they taste amazing. Highly recommend them. Now I mentioned that our tomatoes are being fed with liquid seaweed, but what is the secret weapon for our chilies and peppers? Chili and pepper focus. So we're not sponsored by them, but I used this last year with fantastic results, and again this year. I cannot recommend this feed enough. Like I say, we're not sponsored by them, but get yourself some if you're growing chilies and peppers. So are you growing any chilies or peppers this year? Where are you growing them, and what varieties are you growing? Let me know in the comments, because I always like to try new varieties and might pick one of yours next year. So that's what's growing on in our polytunnel this summer. Now there is one more thing I wanted to show you guys. Looks a bit wild and woolly around here, but this is a very important thing for biodiversity. Some of you guys may remember that we planted lots of wildflower seeds here not long ago, and look at this lovely array of colours. This is amazing for pollinators, and with a decline of bees in the UK, I mean, we're doing our bit. We're doing our bit for the environment here, and it looks amazing too. Now with the polytunnel doors open as well, those pollinators are going to be able to head into the polytunnel itself and also enjoy the lovely pollen outside on these wildflowers. This is going to grow back next year too, so finally some success with wildflowers. So we are really happy with the progress in our polytunnel. We will give you another video update later on in the season when things are starting to ripen. And although we love our polytunnel, and it's probably one of our most valuable assets that we have on our allotment, they may not be for you. There are several cons to think about with a polytunnel. For example, the cover needing to be replaced every 5 to 10 years. I would highly recommend going with one of these clear polythene ones and not one of the green ones that do fall apart, as we found out. But my top advice, if you're going to get a polytunnel, make sure you trench the cover in, bury it a couple of feet into the ground and reinforce the frame. Do you have a polytunnel on your allotment? If not, would you consider getting one? Let us know in the comments. Also, let us know about your successes or your failures if you have a polytunnel. We'd love to know. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please drop it a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well for more updates on our allotment plots. And now it's time to get back to watering. Yes. It's very dry today, so watering, which I will add, we don't use a hose pipe, we use watering cans on our plot, and it takes roughly about 2 hours. So let's get cracking. See you in the next one, guys.